Trump now, who's quite impatient. He wants to have a record of peace deals on his hand, as your previous correspondent was saying. What I worry about is that Trump is saying, let's go straight to a peace deal, not worry about a ceasefire. Now, from what I understand, that means is that basically the Russians can still keep sending bombs into Ukraine.
As worth pointing out, the Sunday Times is reporting today, maybe a slightly different dimension to these talks compared to February. Senior Republicans are urging President Trump to impose sanctions on Russia if Putin refuses to turn up for a three-way summit with President Zelensky. So it will be interesting. Alex, thank you so much. That's Alex Cadier, who is a journalist in Kyiv. Let's turn now then to Karin Von Hippel, who is former Director General of the Royal United Services Institute, which is a defence and security think tank. Morning to you, Karin. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
First of all, is President Putin speaking really uncomfortable truth to the Europeans and the Ukrainians, something that no one wants to see in Europe, but a reality that actually the only way to bring this war to an end is for a divvying up of land? Do you think that is inevitable?
The problem is nobody trusts President Putin, and nobody believes that, say, Zelensky does agree to this so-called land swap, that would be the end of Putin's irredentist ambitions. I mean, he really does. You saw with Lavrov wearing the CCCP jumper at the Alaska summit, meeting the USSR. We know that he wants return of as much as possible. So I think that nobody would really believe it would be the end for not only Ukraine, but other parts of Europe that Putin may desire. And so that's really the challenge. Nobody trusts Putin, and for good reasons, because he doesn't implement any agreement he's ever agreed to, basically. That's really the problem.
What's your assessment of the Alaska summit? Because there were some truly remarkable images that we all witnessed.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly rolled out the red carpet, which I think was offensive to a lot of Ukraine supporters, to a lot of Europeans. It was a strange choice of a state to put in, but of course it is close between the two. What I worry about is Trump now, who's quite impatient. He wants to have a record of peace deals on his hand, as your previous correspondent was saying. What I worry about is that Trump is saying, let's go straight to a peace deal, not worry about a ceasefire. Now, from what I understand, that means is that basically the Russians can still keep sending bombs into Ukraine, whereas a ceasefire would say you have to stop fighting right now, and then we talk about next steps. And so I'm not sure what Trump thinks going straight to a peace deal versus a ceasefire means, but you have some pretty inexperienced people involved on the U.S. side, and then they're throwing out terms that mean different things to different people. And I think we need to be very explicit about what next before the Monday meeting. I think it's very good what you had said just previously, that a number of Republican senators, in particular Senator Lindsey Graham and a few others, have been very supportive of Ukraine, and they will behind the scenes be pushing very hard on Donald Trump. But it's not easy with Donald Trump, as we know.
Yeah. And I just wonder how you think that President Zelensky should approach this meeting in Washington, because clearly no one wants to see a repeat of what happened in February in the Oval Office. But,
Right.
but we also know that, there was that really powerful meeting, wasn't there? Around the Pope's funeral, when Trump and Zelensky got together.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a difficult line, as we heard Alex, the reporter in Kyiv, saying to us, a line to tread for Zelensky in this meeting on Monday.
It's super difficult, and nobody wants to repeat. I think even Trump was a bit embarrassed about what happened last time. I think Vance led him into that. And I'm not sure who President Trump will have in the office with him when he has that meeting. But I do think Zelensky can be fairly conciliatory. He can also say, I can't decide that now. I have to go back to my people. Our Constitution says that we can't cede land without, putting it to a vote. So he can be polite, he can be firm, but he can also say, I'm sorry, I just can't sign on the dotted line. You respect that we're a democracy. And so he can delay in that way. And I would hope he does something like that. And then let's hope that the Europeans, including Keir Starmer and others who do have some influence over President Trump behind the scenes, can put more pressure on him.
Do you think we're any closer towards some kind of ceasefire or peace settlement now than we were, say, a week ago?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think we all really, really want it to be over. And so we have to be quite careful that we analyze this really in a pragmatic, realistic way, because I think President Putin is really the problem in all of this. And it's a trust deficit that all of us have, or everyone who follows this and who's been following, Russia in the last couple decades. We know that he just does not implement what he says he will implement, and that's why the U.S. really does need to talk about security guarantees. And perhaps Zelensky will put pressure on Trump to say, okay, well, say we agree to it, say the Constitution, is changed, or the people vote in a referendum. How do we make sure? What do we do if President Putin doesn't abide by this agreement? And I would hope that he would put more pressure on Trump. But the reality is with Donald Trump, as we've seen so many times, he just moves all over the map.
Absolutely. Really good to speak to you. Thank you. That is Karin Von Hippel,
Thank you.
who is former Director General of the Royal United Services Institute, which is a defence and security think tank. What Karin was referring to there was that European countries appear to be increasingly confident that the US president will agree to provide American security guarantees to Ukraine as part of any ceasefire deal. And the way the Sunday Times is reporting this, which is absolutely fascinating, is it would include an Article 5 style pledge that Western countries would come to Ukraine's aid if Russia attacks again. So essentially what happens with the NATO agreement, but Ukraine would not be a member of NATO. I guess the difficulty there is, would Trump sign that? Would he write it down? How do you enforce it? And can you trust that Trump wouldn't change his mind?
We'll hear more about that after 7:35. We'll be hearing from Alex Plitzas, a former Pentagon official and non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. One of the other dimensions, we'll get into this in just a sec, is the kind of politics of all of this, of course, for the UK and the coalition of the willing, so European leaders who... Let's be real. Is this the case that actually European leaders have to look at themselves here and go, hang on a second, over the last number of years we are guilty of allowing this to happen by not taking more defensive action over a longer period of time. And so this is the outcome. This is the result. That actually we are now facing a situation where Putin has invaded and to some extent conquered at least some regions of Ukraine. And now he gets to keep them. That's the price of not defending properly and building up defences over years gone by. And so actually, they need to get serious about defence from here on out. That is the security guarantee, isn't it? If European leaders can point at their defence spending and say, we are building this, Russia, you won't be able to do this ever again because we'll be ready for it this time, instead of this kind of blasé approach of the last few years. That's what they're contending with.
Or the alternative is, which was presented to us by a member of Volodymyr Zelensky's political party earlier on, no, we don't accept this. We keep fighting. We have European support and we keep turning the screw on the Russian economy, and eventually Putin will be forced to make some difficult decisions because the money simply won't be there. That is one option. Whether it's an option that is taken, that is one option.